They say that life has chapters, but what happens when you believe you've already read the final page? When the silence of empty rooms becomes your only companion and the days stretch out before you in a monotonous, predictable gray? Sometimes in the most unexpected of places, among dusty bookshelves and the faint, sweet smell of aging paper, a new story begins to write itself. Today's story is about Arthur, a man of 64, and Evelyn, a woman of 68. Two people who thought the chapter on love and passion in their lives had long since closed, but they were about to discover that even in the autumn of life, a spark can still ignite, a secret can be born, and a heart that has been dormant for years can begin to beat again. This is a story about a forbidden connection, a love that started with a whisper in the deep, quiet dark of a small town library. Right here, please, y'all, just a little deeper. Her voice, a soft, breathless whisper in the dark, still echoes behind my ears. I'm 64 years old. I am a man who has spent the last 20 years of his life using the same brand of polish on the same mahogany desk, a man who believed his passions had been retired along with his teaching career. After my pension kicked in, I thought my world had shrunk to the size of this quiet town, to predictable coffee mornings at the local community center. But tonight, there is no one else in this dusty, forgotten archive room. There is only us. And as my hand, accidentally, brushes against hers, I know, with a terrifying certainty, that my small, safe, predictable world is about to shatter into a million pieces. Her name is Evelyn, Evelyn Reed. 68 years old, a widow, just like me. It all began, as the best and most dangerous stories often do, with a chance encounter. I saw her again at the town library, a place I'd taken to frequenting simply to escape the oppressive silence of my own house. Arthur? Arthur Monroe? Is that really you? It had been years. We'd known each other in that casual, orbiting way people do in small towns, back when our respective spouses were still alive. I'd heard her husband, Richard, had passed a few years after my Margaret. She looked the same, yet different. Her silver hair was still elegantly styled, and her eyes still held a glimmer of the playful spirit I remembered, but now it was veiled by the soft, hazy fog of a deep and abiding loneliness. I'm trying to organize the library's archives, she explained, a wry smile on her lips. A century of town records. The director sweet-talked me into volunteering, but honestly, it's a bit much for one person. She looked at me, a hopeful, almost shy expression on her face. I know this is terribly forward of me, but would you even consider lending an old friend a hand? And that's how I found myself here in the library archives, long after the last patron had gone home and the doors had been locked for the night. The room was dimly lit by a single bare bulb, casting long, dancing shadows. It smelled of old paper, dust, and time itself. Stacks of books and archival boxes rose up around us like the skyscrapers of a forgotten city. This is heavier than I thought, Evelyn said, her voice strained as she tried to shove a cardboard box filled with old ledgers. Let me, I said, moving behind her to help. I placed my hands on the box to support its weight, and in that moment, my chest pressed against her back. It lasted only a second. But a second was all it took. The warmth of her body seeped through the thin fabric of her blouse, a living, breathing heat that felt both alien and achingly familiar. I was a 64-year-old man. I thought I'd forgotten what that felt like. But that warmth, that was the warmth of a woman. Thank you, she said, her voice a little breathless. She didn't move away immediately. We worked in a new kind of silence for a while, the only sounds the rustle of paper and the soft whisper of our own breathing. I'm afraid, she said suddenly, her voice small in the vast quiet. Afraid of what? This, she gestured around the room. If someone saw us, here together, after hours, what would they think? She turned to face me, and in the dim light, I could see her eyes were glistening. So, please, let's just be careful. That plea was like a key turning in a lock deep inside me. It wasn't just a warning, it was an acknowledgement. It acknowledged that there was something here, in this room, between us, that was worth whispering about. It transformed a simple act of helping a friend into a shared, trembling secret. Evelyn, please. Tonight, in the silence of this room, the only things that feel real are the smell of old paper and the sound of our suppressed breaths. We continued to work, but the atmosphere had shifted. The air was now thick with things unsaid. Every time our hands accidentally brushed as we reached for the same file, it felt like a small jolt of electricity. It certainly is helpful to have a man around at times like this, she said, trying to lighten the mood with a smile. But the smile didn't reach her eyes. Her eyes held a profound loneliness that I recognized all too well. I saw it in my own reflection in the bathroom mirror every morning. How long has it been for you? I asked gently. 10 years, she replied, her voice soft. Since Richard passed. Aren't you lonely? The question slipped out before I could stop it, too personal, too direct. I decided I would be, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I feel like, at my age, you're not supposed to admit you're lonely. You're supposed to be stoic. You're supposed to manage. Her words were a dagger to my heart, because I was doing the exact same thing. Every day I put on a mask of contentment, pretending that I was used to the silence, that I preferred my own company. But every night, when the darkness fell and the house grew cold, the pretense crumbled. I know, I said, my voice hoarse. Me too. The moment I admitted it, the space between us seemed to collapse. Arthur, Evelyn whispered, and she laid a hand on my chest. It wasn't a seductive touch. It was a touch of desperate human need. Please, would you just hold me? I want to remember what the warmth of a person feels like. I took a breath that felt like it was drawn from the very bottom of my lungs. And then I closed the distance and wrapped my arms around her trembling shoulders. The moment I touched her, the carefully constructed dam of reason and propriety that I had built over a decade of solitude shattered into 1,000 pieces. Two, quiet, weary sighs mingled and became one in the cramped space, surrounded by the ghosts of the past. If anyone finds out, I heard myself say, the words a rash promise. I'll handle everything. Her fingers dug into the fabric of my shirt, clinging to me. We were no longer old acquaintances sorting through documents. We were a man and a woman in our 60s, rediscovering a forgotten language, testing the heat of a fire we both thought had long since gone out. The smell of paper, her faint floral perfume, our mingled, ragged breaths. It was a potent, intoxicating cocktail. A forbidden story was beginning, and we both knew we were powerless to stop it. More, she whispered against my chest, her voice breaking through the proud facade she presented to the world. It wasn't the tremor of fear in her voice, it was the tremor of want. Evelyn, I breathed her name, and it felt like a transgression and a prayer all at once. Don't say my name, she pleaded, her voice muffled. I'm ashamed. But she didn't pull away. Instead, she tilted her head back, her silver hair brushing against my chin, her wet eyes looking up at me with a raw, pleading vulnerability. The blood in my veins, sluggish for so long, felt like it was rushing backward. I gently backed her against a tall, narrow bookshelf, the spines of old books pressing into her back. Someone might hear us, she gasped. It's okay, I whispered, my voice rough with an emotion I hadn't felt in years. There's no one here. Instead of answering, her fingers curled tighter into my back. The dry, dusty scent of paper filled my senses as her moist, warm breath met mine. She let out a small, shuddering sigh. I'm in my 60s, she said, as if it were an apology. I'm a woman who has lost her glow. No, I said, my thumb gently tracing her jawline. To me, you are still glowing. And then I kissed her. She trembled in my arms, but she didn't pull away. She kissed me back, a hesitant, then hungry kiss that spoke of years of unspoken loneliness. In the cathedral-like silence of the archive, there was no sound of running water, no music, no distractions. There was only the sound of our breathing, the soft rustle of our clothes, the faint creak of the wooden bookshelf. I can't control this, I murmured against her lips. It's okay, she breathed. I'm the only one listening. A desperate hopefulness colored her tone. Besides, none of the staff would come back at this hour. Hearing that whisper of permission, she seemed to surrender completely, her eyes fluttering shut. Her fingertips clutched at my shoulders, her voice a trembling plea. Deeper, please. A few books, dislodged by our movement, tumbled to the floor with a soft, muffled thud. But even that sound, a clear sign of our transgression, only served as a signal, a catalyst that pushed us further into the intoxicating haze of the moment. Her slender body, pressed against mine, felt just as alive, just as vibrant as it must have been in her youth. Age, reason, location, none of it mattered anymore. All that existed was the desperate loneliness of two people, igniting into a shared, consuming flame, mingling with the scent of a century of history, forging a secret that would bind us together forever. I can't go back now, she mumbled, her voice thick with emotion. I don't want to go back, I replied, and I'd never been more certain of anything in my life. Her eyes fluttered open, and I saw something shift, something break free behind them. Our forbidden night was deepening, pulling us down into a silent, secret world where no one else existed. The books lay scattered on the floor like fallen leaves, and dust motes danced in the single beam of light. I tried to catch my breath, holding Evelyn tightly in my arms. Her fingers were still laced behind my neck. I can't stay quiet, she whispered, her voice a raw, vulnerable thing. You don't have to. I'm the only one listening. But as the old wooden shelving groaned under our combined weight, she looked past me, her eyes widening at the mess we'd made. The bookshelf was visibly shaking, and in that exact moment, we heard it. A distinct sound echoing from the far end of the long, dark hallway. Footsteps, the firm, steady tread of shoes on the hard linoleum floor. Evelyn and I froze, our bodies still pressed together, our breaths caught in our throats. Someone's coming, she breathed, her voice a thin thread of panic. My heart hammered against my ribs. I quickly pulled her away from the bookshelf, guiding her into the deep shadows between two towering stacks of archives. It must be the security guard. She bit her lip to stifle a cry, her hands pressed flat against my chest. I could feel her heart beating as wildly as my own. The footsteps grew closer, slower now, more deliberate. What was that noise? A young man's voice echoed in the cavernous, silent hall. The beam of a flashlight cut through the darkness, sweeping across the rows of shelves, illuminating the scattered books on the floor. Is anyone in here? My heart felt like it was going to explode. I could feel the tremors running through Evelyn's body as she huddled against me. If we were found like this, everything would be over. Our reputations, our quiet lives, everything would be reduced to a sordid, small-town scandal. The guard's footsteps stopped directly outside the archive room door. We heard the metallic scrape of a key, then the rattle of the doorknob as he tried to turn it. But I had locked it from the inside. The door shook in its frame as he pushed against it, the sound of rattling metal echoing like a gunshot in the silence. It's locked. Must have been nothing. Hearing his voice retreat, I realized I was drenched in sweat. Finally, the footsteps faded away. The library returned to its profound silence. But for us, the silence was now filled with the deafening sound of our own frantic heartbeats. That was too close, Evelyn whispered, tears streaming down her face. I thought we were really caught. It's okay, I'm here, I replied, stroking her hair, my own voice unsteady. Her face was flushed, and I couldn't tell if it was from fear or the lingering heat of our passion. Maybe we should stop now, she said, but her words lacked conviction. Can you? I asked. She shook her head slowly, pressing her face into my chest. What's even scarier, she confessed, are the nights I have to sleep alone. The moment I heard those words, my last shred of reason crumbled into dust. Me too, I said. I can never go back to being that lonely again. I tilted her chin up and kissed her again. As our wet, salty lips met, our breaths mingled, and the desperate heat between us flared back to life, stronger and more urgent than before. The scent of her hair, the smell of old books, the faint metallic tang of our shared fear. It all mixed together. Even as we tried to stifle our sounds, they escaped. Small, desperate gasps that were lost in the vast, dark library. Just for tonight, she pleaded, and every night. Instead of answering, I just held her tighter. The fear hadn't completely vanished, but it had transformed, morphing into a reckless, exhilarating energy that made us both bolder. We sank to the cool floor, the scattered books a testament to our transgression. The grand clock somewhere in the main hall chimed midnight, the heavy golden tones vibrating through the floorboards and deep into my chest. This can't last, Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling again. What can't? A life like this, hiding and being afraid? The footsteps tonight. One day we're going to get caught. So what if we do? I said, and even I was surprised by the unwavering certainty in my voice. I'm not leaving you. She closed her eyes, making herself small against me. Aren't you afraid? Terrified, I admitted. But I'm more afraid of losing you. After a long moment of silence, she let out a soft, watery laugh. This feels like we're in high school, hiding a secret from our parents. But we're not in high school anymore, I said. That's why we can't afford to waste any more time. As if on cue, we heard the footsteps again, running down the hall this time. The doorknob rattled violently. There's definitely someone in there. A different voice, an older one, shouted from the other side. What do we do? Evelyn's terrified eyes searched mine in the dark. There's nowhere to run, I said, my voice calm despite the storm raging inside me. If they find us, I'll explain everything. The doorknob continued to rattle for a moment, then stopped. I'm reporting this to the management office. We'll check it first thing in the morning. The footsteps retreated, and silence returned once more. We didn't move. In the quiet, only our hammering heartbeats remained. I'm not running anymore, I said, a final decision solidifying within me. Why? Evelyn asked, tears shining in her eyes. Why would you risk so much for me? Because I can't lie anymore, I said. Not to you and not to myself. Deep in the dark, dusty archives of a small town library, something new and true had been born. We couldn't go back, and for the first time that felt okay. But rumors, like dust, have a way of seeping out from under closed doors. They began as whispers. Have you seen Arthur Monroe and Evelyn Reed? They spend an awful lot of time at the library late at night, alone. The whispers followed us at the grocery store, at the community center. Evelyn started looking at the ground more when she walked down the street. I'm sorry, I told her one evening as we sat in the park. This is all my fault. No, it's not, she said fiercely, because I wanted it too. But she bit her lip to keep from crying. A few days later, I was summoned to a meeting in the library director's office. He and a few members of the board were sitting there, their faces grim. The air was heavy with judgment. We've had some complaints, Arthur, the director said, avoiding my eyes. About noises at night. We don't pass judgment on personal relationships, but we cannot allow the library facilities to be used in this manner. Their piercing, knowing glances were worse than any direct accusation. That night, Evelyn and I sat on our park bench, the cold autumn wind whipping around us. We should end this, and she said quietly, I don't want to. But I'm scared, she confessed, tears glistening in her eyes as they welled up. I'm scared of the whispers, but I'm even more scared of the nights without you. The truth is, I just can't stand being lonely anymore. And in that moment, I knew there was only one answer. I reached out and took her trembling hand in mine. Then let's not hide anymore, I said. I choose you. I choose this. Let them whisper. Evelyn was silent for a long moment, her eyes searching mine. Then she gave a slow, deliberate nod. Then let's face them together. The moment I heard those words, a massive weight I didn't even know I was carrying lifted from my chest. We didn't have to run anymore. I was ready to bear the rumors, the stares, the judgment of the entire town. We stood up and held each other tightly, right there in the middle of the public park. Our breaths mingled in the cold night air. It wasn't a hug of fear or passion, but one of certainty and profound peace. We don't have to hide anymore, I said. No, she replied, her voice strong and clear. Our secret was no longer a secret, it was our story. That night, in the quiet of the park, under the distant, indifferent stars, the shadows of a man and a woman in their 60s merged into one. And for the first time in a very, very long time, we didn't feel lonely at all. Arthur and Evelyn's story is a powerful reminder that love doesn't have an age limit, and the human heart is never too old to feel. They found each other in a dusty archive surrounded by the past, but it was in that darkness that they found a future. Is this a story of betrayal, or a story of two lonely souls finding comfort and a second chance where they least expected it? Where does the line between right and wrong lie when it comes to the heart? We would love to know what you think. If this story touched you, please leave a comment below and let us know how it made you feel. Don't forget to hit the like button, share, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another profound story about love, loss, and second chances. Thank you for listening.